Honestly, too much. Too much. Too much! Too much! Too much! An old friend, Amari Jenkins, sent a document, right? And the document is amazing. It's about a story, Captain Finch, a story about a daring sea captain named Captain Finch. Just as much a piece of as the man who he's been tasked to capture, right? So it's an incredible story. So there's something I really want to discuss with you today, okay? And it's in this particular story because Chapter 0, The Man Who Ran Nowhere, Captain Amrand Finch. Halfway across the dissipating world, far out into the reaches of the Middle Rift, at the helm of a rover specially bred for annihilation, hunting down the turncoat who, in a world ran by devils and scum, kings and saints, had an uncanny ability to turn 3 of the 4 on the 1. Usually on the kings and never against the scum. They were the most populous out in the bosom of not so kind stepmother nature, who nursed you with an overly copious serving of lungs filled with ocean, and fed you with the lightning bolts of damnation, and whispered the secrets of the wind into your sails, promising to lift your tub of preservation high enough off the waves for you to have a fantastic bout with consternation before you drowned. This entire paragraph is just one sentence. Now look, I want to talk about two things, okay? This is it. In fact, this is what I want to talk about for the rest of my life. Because look at it this way. We can split this paragraph into two chunks, okay? And here's the interesting question. This is what I wanted to talk to you and have a discussion with you about. And it is basically, when does prolonging the sentence, when does increasing the length of the sentence stop making sense? When should you stop doing it? Because it's a very important question, and it is about really the nitty-gritty details of the craft, okay? So in my eyes, for example, I will split this paragraph into two, okay? And this chunk here is when you should actually stop, because this entire chunk could have been much better off communicated in actually more than one sentence. If you had communicated it, for example, in 2 or 3, probably in five, I would say 5 or 6 sentences. Why is that the case? Because I believe that sentence structure not only should be artistic. In other words, there should be a flavor to it. There should be a beauty to the writing and the structure of the sentences, right? There should be music to it, okay? As if you are a dancer. But also, when it comes to technically, long sentences should be followed either by mid-range or small sentences, right? Which is quite obvious, quite straightforward, but that makes sense because long sentences will tire the reader out. And I'm not joking. Before, when I reached about here, I was really gasping for air. I wanted to stop reading because I had been exhausted by reading literally all of this continuously, non-stop, okay? And so this is the issue. This is one part about this sentence structure and length. But when should you stop actually? How far can a sentence be in a book, in a story, or in actual craft essay? I think it stops being useful and it becomes counterproductive at this point. They were the most populous. After that point, it all goes downhill. Everything hits the wall. Every single thing. You see all of that, it just hits the wall, you know? Exactly. So the reason why is because I think this is fun. Reading up to here is incredibly fun. It's very innovative. It's very nice. And the author is taking risks. Because the problem is, you don't want to have a story, where you're just writing mid-range and short-range sentences. You want to take risks because you are an artist, you are a writer, you are telling a story. This is not a 9 to 5 cubicle where you work every day for 5 days a week and there's a structure and it is systematic and there's systematic reviews and then there's systematic reviews of systematic reviews and blah, 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 right? This is not a rat race. You're doing this to have fun. And I think you should take risks. And I like, the author here, Omari, because he's taking risks with it, halfway across the dissipating world, far out into the reaches of the Middle Rift, at the helm of a rover specially bred for annihilation, hunting down the turncoat who, in a world ran by devils and scum, kings and saints, had an uncanny ability to turn 3 of the 4 on the 1, usually on the kings, and never against the scum. I like it. I think there is a significant, it has voice, it has character, it is everything you would want. And the author is taking risks. It doesn't always pay off. Not everyone likes it, but it doesn't always have to pay off, and not everyone always has to like it. But honestly, I think this one is just too much of a risk. The level of skill needed for an author to pull off an entire paragraph that is this large, of effectively being one sentence, I think is just absurd. The level of skill needed to pull it off, I think, is absurd, right? And so I wanted to talk about this, and I want to ask you the question, basically. How long can a sentence be? So, for example, in this second paragraph, though it wasn't any of these things listed that caused this almost dire clump of anguish and apprehension to strike an uproar in his abdominals, but perhaps it was the, that came flying out of his topside exit, straight into the face of Sears. This is a name. This is one name. Honestly, it is so exhausting, because this is another paragraph that is one sentence. One paragraph that is one sentence. Another paragraph that's one sentence. At this point, Jenkins is going to write one sentence books, because might as well just begin with one sentence and then end with the same sentence, because honestly, this is too much. Yeah, it is incredibly huge. Also, another thing I really want to talk about, and I want to discuss with you, is what about the lexical, right? Because you see, in a sentence, you can have too much. Well, what about purple prose? What about having too many words? What about having too much language? In other words, the words are actually unnecessarily complex, but they don't evoke sharp images, right? So, for example, instead of using idea, you use concept. Concept is not as good as an idea. I have an idea. I have a concept. It's just not the same. So, if you're writing a story, I believe that you should stick with, for example, he pierced his skin, right? He stabbed him in the back. Those are actually much sharper, because stab, pierce, strike. Like, I like this one, yeah? Strike. But apprehension, abdominals, exactly, I don't like that. Anguish, I like that. Clump, I like it. Dire, I like that, because it's very sharp, very obnoxious. It's fine. But retribution, these things don't evoke much of anything. They are very soft words. They are very, very soft. They don't strike the reader. They don't strike an image into the head. And so I want to basically comment on how, looking at this, too many words. Yes, too many words. The sentences are too large and the words are too many, because what is this trying to communicate? Though it wasn't any of these things listed that caused this almost dire clump of that came flying out of his topside exit. Let's, for example, topside exit, right? So topside exit could just use the actual word that's medically for that, right? I don't want to say it here, but you could just use that. Exactly. For example, here, almost dire. You don't really need this. This is quite redundant. Exactly. Anguish and apprehension. The same thing. You could just stick with anguish. To strike an uproar in his abdominals. This is his gut, Exactly. So you have communicated. You can get rid of all of this by simply using the word anguish, because that's literally what it is. I don't imagine that anguish happens anywhere else, but perhaps it was This one is too much. Honestly, too much. Too much. Too much. Too much. Too much. Cut it off. Jenkins, I will come to your household with a freaking bazooka and stick it up your topside exit. Yeah, I'm gonna stick it up your topside exit straight into your face, okay? So that you can be struck with anguish and apprehension, to strike an uproar in your abdominals. Amari Jenkins, this is too much. I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna have to fight you. This is too much. Too much. You have to stop. Too much. I've had it, man. I'm getting pissed off. You see, 2 days ago, I read up to page 11, I think. I was kind of here. Yeah. I could not read any further than this. I was so exhausted. It was too much. And I wanted to read the story because it's actually quite interesting. And so, this entire story has two problems, yeah? The sentences are too large. Now, look, I don't want to be, a bummer, okay? I don't want to bum out Amari Jenkins because he wants to take risks with the story. He doesn't want to be a typical writer. I understand, but you need to learn risk assessment, risk management, okay? Look at it this way. You can split this entire paragraph into two. You have up to this, you have from the beginning all the way to this point, which I think is a decent, risky, but also good thing to have. But overdoing it too much, I think, can basically result in the story getting distracted, okay? It gets distracted and nothing gets done. Yes. So, put it this way. If you want to take risks, if you want to have a story that feels alive, where you as the writer are taking, because again, why shouldn't he take risks? I mean, you're writing a story. It's not like you have a 9-to-5 job. Exactly. You're writing a story. So you don't have to be systematic. You don't have to be stuck up. I respect this. I will continue to respect Amari Jenkins because 99% of writers will go from the 9-to-5 cubicle, and when they write, they will behave exactly as if they are in a 9-to-5 cubicle. They will not take any risks with their writing. This is incredibly stupid and dumb. At least he takes risks. At least he has a backbone. I respect that. But this is too much. You have to cut it off. You have to stop. You can't continue to do this. Because by this point, I was dying. I was out of air. I had to literally take a deep breath the first time because I was like, oh my God, the sentence is still going on. The sentence is still going on, right? So, put it this way. There are two major problems with this story. Both of them simply are because the author, Jenkins, takes too many risks. Most 99% of authors don't take any risks who are writing a story. They simply write, blunt, direct prose. He went the exact opposite. Yes, but I think you should try to strike a balance, right? And there are many authors. Scott Lynch is one author I like who has a voice that is unique. Joe Abercrombie, for example, even in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien is known to actually let it loose sometimes. Patrick Rothfuss is a fantastic example that's celebrated because he strikes a balance between the old lyrical long sentences and so on and so forth, the prose that that's beautiful, but at the same time actually gets something done. So I would say this is not a bad story because reading the story I never really had any problems with it. I was quite interested. It's a fun adventure. Who wouldn't want to go on this adventure? I mean, I'm hooked by the world because run by devils and scum. I like it. Okay? What's there to not like? At least he has balls. Okay? At least he has balls. I will say that much. And also, the people that end up becoming the best types of writers are the people who early on they do stuff like this. In other words, they really fall hard. Okay, this is falling hard. If Jenkins wants to know, have I fallen hard? Yes, you have face planted and you have gone through the planet into deep space. You are now voyaging to Alpha Centauri. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it here. This was a very long video. I hope that you took something from this, and I hope to hear from you. What do you think? How large for a sentence is too large? And how many words are too many, right? In terms of the lexical, adding too many, okay? Anyhow, let me know. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.